quality was the exception, and we got the confidence getting on. We are happy to do it, and I will be advising him and supporting him in many other aspects. Regarding the other guy, I have no idea. I know this was launched by the Italian media, but nobody explained nothing here, and really nothing. So maybe you should also have a thought on me.
Okay, we'll try to find out and work it out. Of course, this weekend, a lot of focus on 2027 with the 850 test, which is coming on Monday. Which riders will be testing the 850 with the Honda on Monday, Alberto?
Yeah, we will be using our current riders. We will be using our current riders, Juan and Luca. It's what it is, it's the situation we have, and we think they are the guys that know better our bike. So we are going like this, and we will try to get the best info from them regarding this new bike, and for the next future test we will see what we do.
He understands that Johan, he confirmed it to us in Barcelona, and Luca will be leaving Honda at the end of the season, whereas Diogo Moreira will be staying at Honda and driving this 2027 bike next year. So can you just explain the decision-making process there to not have Diogo take the opportunity to try the new bike?
Well, what you said is not exactly like this, because there's another test.
But more mileage the better, sure.
Important is to try the bike, and we believe that right now, with the current situation, the plan we made was the best. And there's we are happy for this, and we will go from there.
It's a decision both Diogo and the LPR squad are happy with, but do they understand the reasoning?
A lot in Diego about this matter, because it needs him now with a current new bike trying to understand the 1000. To give him a second bike to drive in the first year is the most stupid thing a team can do, to confuse a rider. And we are not here to confuse riders.
Alberto, thank you for your time, Alberto. Have a good weekend.
Thank you.
We're going to miss some brutal Alberto Food, honestly, up and down in pit lane next year. He moved on to a new consultancy role in HRC. Thanks very much down there, Jack. So confirmation, no great surprise that Joan and Luca Marini, despite the fact that they will not be on next year's Honda 850 XCC machine, will be at least on top of that bike here at the behind closed doors top secret test as we really start to ramp up preparations for 2027 and beyond. Top up Baz Gaglioli, he'll still be looking forward to the new 20 tyre era in MotoGP, and looking forward to potentially a spot in Q2 later on in this session, because Toprak's immediately got himself into the 153 this afternoon. He was briefly there this morning, but he just set his best time of the weekend so far, the 153.758, and just to say that Marco Bezzecchi spoils Toprak's fun at both time.
Yeah, I think it was asking too much to expect Marco Bezzecchi to be as far down the order this afternoon as he was this morning. Bezzecchi's 16th place, keeping his cards very close to his chest earlier on today. Bezzecchi at a pretty straight away, showing a little bit more potential this afternoon. Bezzecchi at 53.5. Fastest lap of the morning, Marc Marquez did a 153.3, which was on a 9-lap old bobber. The first tyres that he ran, the only tyres that he ran in this morning's spring practice session. So that's the kind of benchmark that they're going to be aiming at. Track temperature this morning, though, in free practice one was 42 degrees. It's substantially hotter than that now.
Yeah, Mark was pretty rapid out the gate this morning, wasn't he? The all-time lap record, Pepper Bangwise 152.3. So in extremely hot conditions this morning, Marc Marquez pretty much within a second of the best ever MotoGP lap we've witnessed here in Czechia. So a bunch of the lap times have been improved too, including from Fabio to Joe Antonio. Still, he's carrying some battle scars from the hefty incident instigated by Pedro Acosta's failing KTM, which ultimately then cleaned out Alex Marquez and Alex in this last couple of Grand Prix. And that's a baby that slammed into Fabio Antonio's left hand. That's been an injury he's carried since that Catalan Grand Prix. To get that wound on his a little pinky finger on the left hand, redressed after Balaton Park. Certainly not as hoped as physical stay by the clattering he took in turn 1, instigated by Jorge Martin. The digit now leads a 153.360, which is almost half a second of anything we managed this morning.
Yeah, two riders walking wounded or riding wounded this weekend as a result of that crash. We saw Jorge Martin shaking his left arm and shoulder out this morning. Marco Bezzecchi here on screen said he had a little bit of pain in his back yesterday, and he's carrying a clear on his back for this weekend, given that Martin's going to have 2 long lap penalties to serve on Sunday afternoon. Bezzecchi now down to a 153.080, flexing his muscles early on in this afternoon session as the World Championship leader. That is the fastest lap of the day.
And that's not easy to do that because he's got a slight tear in the muscle in his right leg. After we've got a tough one, I think we've got Martin in that first corner instant. He has not been able to do any riding at all on any form of 2 wheels, be it a push bike or a training bike. Back at home in Italy, complete the rest of the way for Bezzecchi. Well, we've heard the official factory Honda story about their first look into 2027 next year with no Diego Moreira on Honda's 850 here at the post-race test on Monday. Well, let's get the Brazilian team boss's thoughts on that situation. Lucio checking out with Jack.
Yeah, if Alberto Puig asked me to do something, then I'm always going to do it, Lucio. I just spoke to him a second ago and said, the LCR squad and Diogo understands the decision to not have him try the 850 bike on Monday, and Alberto said, I don't know, ask them. So here I am asking you, do you understand that decision to not have him ride the 850 and instead have 2 riders that are leaving Honda at the end of the year try it instead?
Absolutely, we shared this opinion with Honda already last week, and also before we have discussing. The matter is that we want to riding and using good bike. There is no really urgency, to go quicker and to do quick. We want to conserve the best possible in improving in the current performance.
So both you and Diogo be here on Monday, at least to get an understanding of what the riders are saying, how the new Pirelli tyres are reacting, how the new 850s behave, just to try and do a little bit of homework.
Yeah, definitely. We'll be on track, following and watching. Again, the will continue to be developed. I believe that Honda, the current specification is not the real specification that we will use next year. So there is no point here, and that's why we are keen to stay here to see, but without getting stressed because we are.
Just finally, we've got some great images on social media coming into the weekend of Johan Zarco, at least back in the gym, trying to get some training going, even though he's still waiting for an operation on the knee. Have you got any further update on when that operation might come? And I imagine you the same, a smile on your face, seeing that Johan back to doing what he does best, playing the guitar and training.
Well, as you and as many past, it's very important, very positive that the surgeon, the medical staff decided to let him try again, restart with training, and then this will definitely help very much.
Thanks to Lucio checking hello. So when he's upright on 2 wheels, Marc Marquez has been incredibly fast. But this is crash number 2 of day 1 here in the Grand Prix of Czechia. We saw him wash the front out at turn 7 this morning, and now it's turn 11 as Martin gets a little bit of hidden on the bike there. Then maybe if he ran through the Grand Prix. Let's have a listen. Just tap the towel back in. Did that just cruise to take a little bit too much weight off of that front tyre. Frustration there for Mark. All in all, that's a bit of an unnecessary early spill in this session. So a double win in Balaton to a double crash on Friday here in Brno.
You just hear him there shouting, go, 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 as he gets a push start. He had done 2-3 red sectors actually. He was a fraction up on Marco Bezzecchi at the 3/4 mark of the lap. We can now hear the desperate attempts of Mark. You can see him signalling up ahead there to try and get some help, because it's all uphill from there, Mark, to get yourself back to the pits.
And not better off actually going to a form where you can just turn it around and maybe get it fired up. He's going to have a crack. Well, we'll keep a close eye on whether Marc Marquez can get that Crash Ducati back to pit lane. I don't know what any kind of substantial damage, maybe a bit of cosmetic damage. So we're hoping as he goes into time attack mode later on in the session, he'll still have 2 Ducatis available at his disposal. As we pick up Ranier, he got a strong FT1 this morning. He was out on fresh rubber on the factory Honda, just about 50 metres or so behind his teammate Luke Mooney. Those two were in the top 10 this morning. We'll be hoping for a repeat of that this afternoon. We'll then going through turn 14. Near now on the back there, third gear, about 135 kilometres an hour. Round near up into 18th place, not able to trouble the 153 so far this afternoon.
It's on that medium combination. Everyone who's out on the racetrack, with the exception of Jack Miller, on the medium rear tyre. Miller's on the soft rear tyre. Marc Marquez, you can see now, has got his Ducati back running again. Of course, as we now know, regulations for 2026. If you do have a crash and lose the engine, you must restart it on the service road, not at the side of the racetrack. So you can see some scrapes on the left-hand side, which is the side he crashed on, but it doesn't appear as if there is too much heavy damage. Of course, the aero at the front is also damaged, the brand new aero on the front of that Ducati, but Ducati have had heavier rebuilds than that.
Yeah, they certainly have, especially when in the past with Mark, of course. Actually, he's also attached, handlebars a bit scraped up, fairing all need replacing on the left-hand side, and that's for sure. Down Mark, when he was third quickest, still quickest with a 153.377, which is pretty much on par with the pace he set to lead FT1 this morning. Pekka Bagnaia briefly this morning made a factory Ducati 1-2. That's going to be frustrating, Mark. He'll be unhappy with himself there. Both times just been picking up the throttle and he's gone down. Good news for Mark, as they've both been in left-hand corners. There's been no sort of potential risk of aggravating that recovering right shoulder. Here's Bagnaia, the Pastrana, got a good one through the first 3 sectors. He will attack hard now, flick it right, drag the elbow and knee through the final corner before he picks up the drive grip, powers to the finish line, short on to the finish line, picks up 1 place. It's Bagnaia, down to a 153.493, back on the P7.
Yeah, look good to those final couple, particularly when he was braking for so 13, where no longer seeing the snaps under braking from the rear accident we often saw. Last year we saw as recently as this year in correct for Pekka Bagnaia. So much of the secret to Pekka Bagnaia's performance is how he gets that Ducati stopped. And of course, we're expecting with the news that broke during the lunch break here in Brno of the confirmation of an agreement between MotoGP Sports Group and the manufacturers to proceed to the next 5 years in MotoGP, which should open the door over the next week or two for the rider announcements for the coming 2027 new generation of MotoGP to be made. Of course, Pekka Bagnaia's name will be central to all of that.
Love that shot there on the outside camera of Bagnaia, trail braking into turn 3, the hardest braking zone around this Brno circuit. But see for how long he was holding onto the front brake with lean angle as well. Superb shot, that, love that, brilliant stuff from our production crew and from the MotoGP World Champion as well, as we pick up Diogo Moreira. We'll have to bide his time, we'll have to be patient before he does get his first taste of Honda's 850cc machine. Lucho checking out there, just telling Jack Diogo and the LCR can fully understand the reasons why Diogo's 850cc debut will be delayed. Maybe he'll have a play on it after the post-race test at the Red Bull Ring in Austria in late September time. But what we do know is that this one, he's going to be very, very quick indeed. A big Honda star of the future is Diogo Moreira. Superb last time out in Balaton. 6th place he was at the road line. Best result by Brazil in MotoGP. No Barros was 5th at Philip Island 19 years ago in 2007. Fair to say Brazil have a new MotoGP superstar to roar on.
Yeah, entertained as in both the sprint and the Grand Prix. Made life difficult for Jorge Martin in the sprint. Martin eventually, after a couple of attempts, got packed in. And actually, when the first corner chaos was unfolding back in Malta, Moreira actually came out of the second corner in 3rd place behind Pedro Costa and Marc Marquez, but then was passed by Pekka Bagnaia and a couple of others coming through turn 4 on that first lap. Who knows, you might have been talking about Diogo Moreira as a podium finisher already for MotoGP, but I don't think we're going to be waiting altogether that long for the into next year. You'd expect Diogo Moreira on what is expected to be a very competitive 850cc Honda. So much positivity surrounding that project into the new generation of MotoGP. Moreira to be a major player on it.
Top 10s in the last 3 Grand Prix peloton. It was a breakthrough weekend. First time he scored points in both the sprint and the Grand Prix. There is his crew chief, Klaus Noles. As you can see there, the Honda spotting low. He's got the handful of power. It's slippy on that one down to turn 3. 310 kilometers an hour. And the fastest part of this Renault circuit. You're already going through that key to turn 2 in 4th gear, about 230 kilometers an hour. You want a horsepower. Can negotiate the undulations of Renault. There's a very good reason why the run out of turn 14 and 13, a real sharp one, is called horsepower hill, because if you're lacking acceleration, if you're lacking some pace, then you're going to look for the time here in the Grand Prix of Czechia. Just keep a close eye around at the start of the session while we listen to Untitled Chapter, because we only had 21 rides, had set lap time, and Moreira was either straight back into the pits after an early run, or there was some kind of fans leaky, but he is still down in 22nd place at the moment. He's only done 4 laps in this session, which is half of what Marco Bezzecchi, your session leader, has done.
Yeah, Diogo Moreira, of course, came here for the first time last year, and wasn't exactly full fit last year when he arrived in Moto2 Practice. He had that collision essentially with David Alonso. Had to start with a pit here. He only really came here last year to serve that penalty for Gravity, but this is the first time he's really visited the Renault circuit and lapped it in any sort of anger.
Well, a lot of talk, a lot of gossip, but despite the fact that we believe he is on to the factory Ducati next year, KTM will use the skills of Pedro Acosta to test their 850cc machine here on Monday. All kinds of talk about who will be in KTM's lineup with Maverick Vinales. Sort of not too forthright, being very forthright actually about his potential future with KTM. One man in the know as regards the Austrian man, as always, is the boss, Rick Barra, who joins Jack.
Yeah, he does indeed, all off the back of a Hungarian Grand Prix where pits, I imagine you're pretty sick of the name Marc Marquez. Pedro in fine form all weekend, but once again that wait for a MotoGP victory for both himself and Pedro goes on. How do you reflect on Hungary? I'm sure pleased once again with the performance, but you want that one down.
Yeah, he has to win races, so for sure he wanted next to win so badly, but
I think that's a replay. I'm just confirming, getting a little bit excited, a replay of an earlier crash. So don't worry, it's one of your boys.
okay. No, but since we couldn't really make points in Barcelona and then had a really difficult Mugello weekend, so I was again very happy that we had a great performance at Balaton. And then, if you have Marc Marquez in his best form and best speed, running 10 seconds before third, it's an incredible performance. So I was happy the performance is there. I'm happy Pedro could get good points. Of course we want to win, but I want to be also competitive, and that we have proven at Balaton. So yeah, I left the place much more happy than sad because we didn't win.
Looking at the 850 test on Monday, we have some announcements today with regard to the future of the sport. A lot of focus on the new bikes that we're going to see, or not a lot of us, it's behind closed doors, but we might see some photos of the new bike on Monday. Pedro was quite calm yesterday when asked whether he's going to be riding the bike, so can you confirm to us which 2 riders will be on your 850 machine on Monday?
We're going to split it up in the testing here in Kingsport. We'll have to see which riders are which.
Come on, Pete, you must know by now, it's in 2 days' time.
Yeah, but I can also tell you that I finished without pushing me to have them. So it was like the 2 test boys are on track with the test team, but also we have 1 race team out there, and the rider will be Pedro on Monday.
Okay, so can you just talk us through the reasoning behind that? Because a lot of manufacturers have blocked riders that we believe aren't going to be the factory next year. Pedro is one of them, so what's the thinking behind that decision?
Look, it's quite simple. Pedro is the fastest KTM rider we ever had and we have at the moment. So we want to get the benchmark from the best rider. I would say our best. We have also the strongest test team, by the way, and they're doing an incredible job. And so we have a lot of information from them about the bike, but then it's still something different to have a race boy on there, and that's why
it was for us a logical choice, even if you think about where he could be next year and this and that. He's our very well-respected factory rider of this season, the best rider we have, so we need to keep him as the best rider on our bikes to find out what the bikes can do, and also build on that the rest of the development, because everybody's just halfway through, and it's still a long way to go until next year. But I feel we have just a good setup for Monday to get the next step development.
Just like to have you as well. There's some comments from Maverick Vinales yesterday that I'm sure you might have seen. Quite frustrated with his current situation with KTM, saying that he was told by KTM in the winter he would be an official factory rider. Then that changed to Tech Clark. Now he's saying he doesn't know where he's going to. He doesn't feel that his loyalty to KTM is being rewarded at the moment. Do you understand his frustration?
Yes, I can understand his frustration, but yeah, we also need to understand a little bit our side, that somehow we need to create the best possible package. So we were waiting really, we gave him a lot of time to come back, and there is nothing we want more than bringing him back to the normal form. Today practice is doing great so far. If he continues like that, he will be one of the guys in the garage. But also there I have Günther, who took over now a very strong leadership of the garage, which is great for us, because I feel that this will be a very strong team in the future, and we get different input. It's so refreshing to talk to Günther, because he's so often like black and white. We don't think too much about who promised something to somebody 4 years ago or this or that. He just says today, okay, let's take a decision left or right. So based on that, we agreed together. We're going to wait a little bit on his places, because I mean, so many things are done in the paddock. But now on his garage, we still have the chance to decide also a little bit later. And give also everybody needs to involve the chance to show up and show strength. So back to your question, yes, I can understand Mary, and I don't feel comfortable in that situation, because he's such a good player, and he did so much for us at the beginning of last year. We didn't get the KTM with a good bike when a lot of other riders were leading into the project. It was like that, period. He was the only one from 4 boys who really pushed the project forward. When he brought great results, that's how we got Taylor back. So, I mean, that's all not forgotten, but looking in the future, we need to do the best for the Tech 3 garage, and that's why Günther asked me to stay patient. That's what we are doing right now, but this doesn't mean Maverick is not one of our favorite candidates, so just give us a little bit of time.
Thanks, appreciate it, Heather. Thank you.
Thanks, Jack. Thanks to KTM boss Pete Barber. So there you go, KTM. They're bang on the way there, aren't they? Pedro Acosta is the most talented and the fastest rider they currently have in MotoGP. So that is the reason why he will throw his leg over the KTM 850cc bike tomorrow. Who with a few handful of rides will be able to say by the time they start next season, wherever that may be, there will be even 2 different 850cc Grand Prix rides, and Pedro Acosta. What was it, 132 points he's collected in the opening 8 Grand Prix, which means he outscored every other rider on a KTM, which is a sonic record, isn't it? Double podium here last year for the now 23-year-old Spaniard. He got up into 2nd place in this session. In fact, Ralph Fernandez, fair play. What a job this is by the Trackhouse Aprilia rider, who had to cancel all his media engagements here yesterday in Brunei because he was so ill, so sick. Well, what a picnic. Draining the best medicine. Ralph Fernandez, the first rider on day 1 here, it's in the 52, the 152.862. That's only 7 tenths quicker than anything he managed this morning. This is brilliant by Fernandez.
Both of the Trackhouse Aprilia have gone for a brand new software tyre. Fernandez has set that 52.8 on a brand new software, and Ayakura is doing the same. The 2 Trackhouse Aprilias were both quick this morning. It has to be said, weren't they? Fernandez was 3rd, Agura was 5th, and Ayakura looking in the mood so far. We know he's not usually particularly quick on a Friday morning, so the fact that he was should catch our attention and suggest that the Moto2 World Champion means some serious business here this week. And here comes Agura at the final corner. We're on course for a Trackhouse 1-2 here, but Agura gets this final sector right. He's now down to a 52.718. It is a Trackhouse 1-2 and an Aprilia 3 up in the top corner.
Take a picture, Francesco. What a first day of the office this has been for the new team manager, Francesco Guidotti. Go on, Francesco, give us a smile. 1-2 then. Agura-san leading this practice session. Just a long, long way from the all-out fully-fledged time attacks, but a nice early banker fired in by the two Trackhouse riders. Back out on circuit, looking to rebuild a bit of lost confidence after his second crash of this opening day here in Brno for reigning world champion Marc Marquez. On the deck this morning at turn 7, and before a few moments ago, backing out once again at turn 11. Like that second then was early 153 flat, so here to see early control of the second section in Brno. Control is trying to wrestle back, pressure as well for Bez, as you can see on the graphic. New medium front, new soft rear tyre, and he has absolutely creamed the third sector here as Bez.
It's clearly a strategy by the Aprilia teams, the factory team and the Trackhouse team, to go earlier for a brand new soft rear. Not only because the temperatures are so hot, it might not necessarily be faster by the end of the session. It might be a good moment now while the track is a little quieter to get a lap time on board. Of course, that's so often the case in these MotoGP practice sessions when time attacks are in full flow. We could see some yellow flags impacting lap stage in the final sector 2 for Marco Bezzecchi. He doubled his advantage through the fourth sector, having already taken 2 tenths in the third sector. A 52-2 for Marco Bezzecchi. Ever lap for Brno.
Wow, that is some lap by Marco Bezzecchi. He has just fired in a new all-time lap record, a 1:52.275, 4 tenths clear of the chasing pack already. Bentley Fez, nothing Agura can do on his latest flying lap. Wow, are we the shrub? We're set up for 51, aren't we here? Surely. Already on his first flying lap, Marco Bezzecchi finds a new all-time lap record. That is some performance by Bez. Are we, for the first time in Grand Prix history, going to get a 1:51 here in Czechia?
If this Aprilia saying after the events of this morning and Marc Marquez was been so good on the Ducati, okay, we were happy just to let you have your moment this morning. Now we're going to turn the wick up. Now we're going to show our clear strength, our clear power at the moment. Because at the moment, the 3 Aprilias at the top of the order. The first non-Aprilia is Pedro Acosta, 7/10 of a second drift. Now, everyone hasn't gone for a brand new soft rear tyre yet, so you'd expect the gap to close. But Aprilia are throwing a bit of a marker down in this afternoon session. We still have a bit to go.
Well, the circuit, we can say, is similar in characteristics to Mugello on the calendar you would pick, but no. And we know what Aprilia, Marco Bezzecchi did to the opposition in their home Grand Prix in Mugello. The first ever all Aprilia front row came in the unforgettable Italian Grand Prix for the Mawali factory. Marco Bezzecchi then taking a brilliant first victory for Aprilia, the first victory for himself. We come to that jubilant home crowd, those special scenes under the podium. I think Bez is going to improve on an outstanding 52.275. It's another 152 though, a mid 152. Some distinctness by Bez. A 52.75 followed by a 53.595.
Well, that lap was still pretty faster than anybody else in this session. Marc Marquez goes 7th. He is still on older tyres. He's on the same medium tyres he started the session with. So that's why Marc Marquez is his second off the pace. So we've got Aprilia's 1, 2, and 3. KTM's 4 and 5 for Costa and Vinales. And then Ducati's 6, 7, 8. Bagnaia, Marquez, and backwards Gian Antonio Marc Marquez. Well, is of course Marini 9th on the first of the Hondas. And Jorge Martin, who did also improve recently, but of course hasn't made the same jumps. He hasn't gone for a fresh soft rear tyre. Martin at the moment 10th.
So 52s from a trio of Aprilias. Bezzecchi, Agura and Raul Fernandez. Pedro Acosta only 3 found for the second away from trouble with 52s. And a tight response again from Bezzecchi. This has been some little surge of performance from the world challenger leader, despite the big mishap, despite the pain of that heavy clash, heavy impact from his teammate Jorge Martin at turn 1 in Baltimore. He still did actually increase his world challenger lead over the course of that Hungarian Grand Prix weekend. He comes into this round 9 with a halfway point of the season approaching, with a 20-point buffer over Martin. What was really rehearsing, aside from the physical pain for Bez, with the fact that he lost 30 points Marquez after his maximum haul of 37 over in Balaton. Not too far over from Balaton, a 300 km/h drive away from our previous round is Bezzecchi. And he made a mess of that at turn 13, he was in a hop there. Looking close on Marc Marquez, he's still circulating in 7th. Second goes through gears, 53 flat. Because Marc Marquez has rolled out and hits on his factory Ducati.
Yeah, that's still a faster lap time than any other Moto3 has done, except Pedro Acosta, who's a bit quicker, even with that big mess up at the final couple of corners for Marco Bezzecchi. Quartararo here on screen has also put in a soft rear tyre. So we can fuel on board though for the Frenchman. He's in 15th place at the moment on a 1:53.578. We know Fabio Quartararo can go quicker than that because he went quicker than that this morning.
And go to Vizioso, a former MotoGP winner here in the Grand Prix of Czechia. And the battle that was he had a few years ago, back in 2018, with Jorge Lorenzo on the factory Ducati and Marc Marquez, of course, Ben on the Repsol Honda. Yeah, Maverick Vinales, who was, I guess we have to say, very much in shot window territory at the moment, trying to prove and impress on looking technically and creative management that he's worthy of attaining in 2027. Maverick to the MotoGP start, who is due to make this weekend a double century looming for Top Gun.
I completely understand his frustration, if you want to call it that, at how his current situation with KTM has evolved over the last year. But I guess ultimately, if you're making a decision right now on Maverick Vinales for 2027, to a certain extent you are guessing, because of course it was around this time last year where Maverick began that horrible year of shoulder problems with that qualifying at the Sachsenring, and can't really say we've seen much of Maverick Vinales at 100% since then, and that is ultimately, I guess, what KTM are waiting to see before they're confident enough to commit to Maverick Vinales for the long term.
Yeah, when we hit that stage last year and talk about the worst possible moment, the worst possible time, never a good time to get any kind of injury, of course, but Maverick Vinales in the first half of 2026, 2025 had really stood up and been the lead KTM. I think the tyre pressure penalty was costing a podium on the night lights in Qatar. In fact, yesterday, wasn't it? But in the pre-event press conference, Pedro Acosta, after his double podium here last year, he came in, 5 weeks later towards the back end of July, and Acosta said this Grand Prix really was the turning point of his 2025. So we were getting to sort of around 11 or 12 before Acosta was even threatening podiums last season. Although we are dealing with a very different animal, a very different beast, aren't we, this year. Pedro Acosta has certainly matured a lot. He sort of rid himself of that sort of petulance that was in the garage. He's certainly making a few mistakes. He talked about that in Balaton, saying last year in Balaton, from the 8th of the time last year, he would have dumped it and crashed out in that dogfight with Marc Marquez. But yeah, as mentioned, the Pedro Acosta 2026 is a very different animal to Pedro Acosta for 2025.
Yeah, only 2 non-scores this year for the 12 in the sprint in a wreck, of course, when we had all sorts of chaos with the changing weather through the sprint, and of course the Sunday in Barcelona when he was knocked off at the final corner by Agura when he was going to be 3rd or 4th. So he's certainly squeezed every last drop and every last point out of that factory KTM so far this season, to the point that he is still, I guess, in the World Championship conversation as we begin to approach the halfway point of the season. By the time we head off our summer break after the Saxon Ring in 3 weeks' time, we will be halfway through this 2026 MotoGP season. Pedro Acosta is 48 points off the World Championship lead and just 6 behind 3rd place Fabio Di Giannantonio.
Well, asked him in the press conference yesterday, has he seen enough in the opening 8 Grand Prix, given the fact that he is lead KTM by a mile, and he is only 48 points behind Marco Bezzecchi, given how super fun have been so far this year, and he was, as always, very honest. He just said no. The next mission, the next goal for KTM is to try and find a victory, because, I mean, who would have ever thought this? A stat we'd ever be reading out. Pedro Acosta is making his 50th MotoGP start here this weekend, and unfortunately, the winning column still has a big fat 0. There's been podiums galore, 14 sprint podiums, just the 1 win in sprints. There have been 13 Grand Prix podiums. They're still chasing that very elusive first victory is Pedro Acosta.
And whilst I'm sure he will do plenty of winning in the future when he's in the factory-rated Ducati, we're expecting confirmation in the next week or so of Pedro Acosta, final confirmation that he is heading to the factory Ducati team to partner Marc Marquez from next season. I'm sure he would dearly want to hand KTM a victory before he departs them, because KTM and Pedro Acosta have been integral. They've been hand in hand since Pedro Acosta's Grand Prix career began as a Moto3 rookie when he won the title back in 2021. He has ridden nothing but a KTM, or for KTM, in his entire Grand Prix career.
Brilliant production work again by our camera crews. You can just see there at the moment that these riders are just releasing the front bike through turn 4. Some shots there of Bart Marquez and Pedro Costa. Now Jorge Martin. Turn 4. Alex mid-corner still in second gear. Just over 110 kilometers an hour. Looking for a real good drive out of there. But you move up to fifth gear on the run down to turn 5 at 280 kilometers an hour. Maverick Vinales. Well, he's saying to Katie, isn't it? Now, if you dared, this would be so Maverick Vinales, wouldn't it? Starting the weekend, given that he's been overlooked potentially, he's got no idea about where his future lies. It's Cal Crutchlow. That's the first time that Cal Crutchlow has tipped off the LTR Honda since he's been subbing for Joan Zarco. But Maverick Vinales on course potentially for the top 3 here. Here it is, the top gun there, into turn 13 he goes. Just the final right-hander remaining on the top 3 KTM. Is this indeed going to be a top 3 lap? He might be looking Fermin Aldeguer briefly out of the top 3, otherwise he does. Second place then goes Maverick for Charles with a 152.577. Does not get any more Vinales in there.
Still has plenty to offer, and it's why Maverick Vinales often does frustrate, because we know how good he is when he's at his very best, and everything both on the bike and in between the ears are heading in the right direction for Maverick. Good lap for him, 52.577, the first 52 we've seen from a KTM so far today. Fermin Aldeguer a moment ago set the first 152 for Ducati so far. He did a 52.8 to take what is now 4th place, was 3rd when he came across the line. He's now on the brink of retaking that 3rd place.
He was caught in that incident in the first quarter qualifying after all his injury hell so far this year. The femur fracture in early January while testing in Valencia on a production bike. You just sense that the relief in the Brazilian campaign, particularly from Fermin Aldeguer. I thought it was breaching. Frankie Caltredi in the car park, excellent ballot on Sunday, and was just as powerful a sense of relief that Fermin had walked away unscathed from that scary instance. He does find his PB time of this session at 152.752. I'm not good enough though to make himself back inside the top 3. Haven't seen too much other than the front running force so far this weekend from Jorge Martin. Down in 14th place this morning, not helped by one of his RSGTs packing up underneath him later in the session. And they've looked to trouble the top 10 so far this afternoon in Martin. They're not a million miles outside of it. There's 2,000 to the second behind Luke Marie in 11.
Just the one, the front row start this year for Jorge Martin as he rolls out a bit around turn 3. You feel the front row start is essential for Martin here this weekend, given the 2 long lap penalties. If you're not at the front of the race, a long lap penalty is going to drop you behind a heap of traffic, never mind if you're serving 2 of them. And we've seen him practicing that already so far today. Jorge Martin then in 11th place. He's on a well-used soft rear tyre. I haven't seen him go for a brand new rubber in the last 10 minutes as his teammate and as the Trackhouse player had.
Yeah, he knows his time out there. As Ron Gordon, Aprilia, Bez leads, Agora 3rd, Ralph Hernandez 5th. Those 3 have been comfortably in the 52s. So Jorge Martin does know that he has going to have pace to burn. But when he does go on to the fresh rubber at the end of the session, as Mark Marquez did this morning, seems like he's persevering, getting a lot of data information on used and abused Michelin medium rubber. Because Mark now decelerating into turn 3. Information from Brembo is that's the hardest braking zone around this Renault circuit. Best we've seen from Mark so far, still 153.343. You know, Mark minimum. It's going to be what, half a second, 6/10 quicker when he goes into time attack.
Inside the top 10 at the moment, we've got Martin 11th, Bastianini 12th, Morbidelli's just improved. He's out there on a soft rear tyre. He's just gone up to 13th place ahead of Brad Binder, the 2020 winner here. Fabio Quartararo leading Yamaha at the moment, but only 15th. We've got Yamaha's 15, 16, 17, Quartararo, Miller and Toprak. Moreira in 18th place. He went down this morning. His teammate Cal Crutchlow down in the same cause as we saw at Alex Marquez, understandably, yes, riding within himself at the moment. He's in P19 at the moment on a high 153.
Robbie was on course for a PB lap time. I think he's made a mistake there, hasn't he, going into the Schwartz corner. I think we might see Mark Piffy in this session. You can see he's lost a lot of time from that 3rd split with the mistake at turn 10. As Alex Marquez looks on, Alex, 18th at the checker flag this morning, found himself 19th. He will just be trying to get rid of a bit of ring rust, won't he? Alex Marquez and build up some confidence. As of course the last time Alex Marquez was on top of the MotoGP bike, the worst experience of his Grand Prix career when he was caught up in that horrific incident with Pedro Acosta. Some battle scars that Mark's bearing here in Brno as he falls back into pit lane. But he's seen enough then on that medium combination. And now it's time to see what Mark, the reigning world champion, has got for us in terms of time attack mode.
Battle scars under the there's two, aren't there, for Marc Marquez over the years. He almost wears them as a badge of honour for all of the hard work he's put into bounce back through all the surgeries. The Balta Car victory, just the latest example of Marc Marquez getting injured but getting back on the bike and getting back stronger. He said yesterday that he feels stronger than ever. He said, I have to be stronger than ever. If I'm not, I might as well stop.
Yeah, Balaton Park with Mugello, just before that, the week prior to his brilliant success in Balaton, was the 8th injury comeback Marc Marquez has made since the ref in 2020. 8 comebacks in just 6 years. He keeps coming back for more, and he keeps enjoying more and more success, doesn't he? With number 93, Van Meer's made a very big move. As soon as Meer's going 2 time attacks, this he did this morning when he was out on fresh medium rubber. Meer got himself up to 4th this morning, and he's gone one better so far this afternoon. The factory Honda Star up to 3rd with a 152 up at 6.8.1. So we now have a Aprilia from KTM from Honda, although that could change very, very quickly, rather imminently, because Pedro Acosta is about to set a new all-time lap record, and he does. So Marco Bezzecchi and now Pedro Acosta have dived under Pepe Bagnaya's old all-time lap record. Quickest rider in Brno history now is Acosta, thanks to a 152.228.
And his teammate Brad Binder was just behind him. He's also improved. Binder up to 8th now on the 52.865. He's going to need, at the very least, a mid-52 to have any hope of qualifying two here, because we've got the top 8 all in the 52s, down to Brad Binder in 8th place. We've then got Gian Antonio on a 53.1 and Bagnaia on a 53.3. Marini now into the 52s in 7th. Acosta is now riding his bike, or trying to get his bike back up and running, taking the back entrance into the paddock. Technical problems for the 37. KTM have had their fair share of those recently.
Well, straight off the back of the all-time lap record, this was just after he crossed the line and found that awesome 152.228. Tech 3, sorry, the KTM RC16 tries no more. Smoke there, wasn't there? Like under the screen. I mean, that is almost identical, it felt like, to the cutout he had at the regular of Alex Marquez in Barcelona. Yes, they have had plenty, far too many. The Matterbuck engineers will say reliability issues so far this year. Wow, what a sort of 25 seconds that was for Pedro Acosta. Racing to a 152.228 and didn't even get to the first corner on the very next lap before the engine said, try very much.
He's heading for the top 10 here. 10th is exactly where he goes. He's into the 52s now in a 52.929. Won't last long, because you can see Gian Antonio going very quickly, but as it stands at the moment, all 4 KTMs are in the top 10.
One of KTM's best ever days in their short MotoGP history came here in Brno back in 2020 in just his 3rd ever Premier Class appearance. Brad Binder, a tough and unforgettable victory. Yeah, pace is hotting up here. The time was hot as the ambient temperatures are there. Fabio Gian Antonio starts to climb up horsepower hills. He's going to climb up the rankings from 11th, potentially into P1. He was going to be hot then, unless he makes a right rickets of this final corner, which he doesn't do. So the number 49 will picture perfect today. He's just got 7, with a few metres up the road ahead of Fidgia, and he does indeed go into 3rd place. So 152.372. Not quite the fastest ever Ducati time here in Brno.
So Marco Bezzecchi now second as he leaves pit lane, having led the session for around about 20 minutes after that early soft rear tyre attempt. But we've got Martin down in 15th, and we've got the factory Ducatis with Bagnaia and Marc Marquez 12th and 13th. Still yet to see them really show their cards on a soft rear tyre. Marc Marquez is on an outlap with a soft rear tyre fitting, so we'll get that answer shortly.
Martin then heads out onto circuit. As it stands at the moment, We've got Pecco Bagnaia, we've got Marc Marquez and Jorge Martin outside that all-important top 10. They have got plenty of time to correct that particular scenario. We expect good laps coming in from the number 63 we're riding on board with now. I was going to say, share a little listen to Pecco Bagnaia. It was a very, very little listen, wasn't it? Because we pick him up now, powering out of the final corner, building up some speed on this set of tyres. To turn one, Pecco goes there. So this will be his first flyer on that medium front soft gear. Here, that 240 kilometers an hour as you power through turn 2. And now approach the hardest braking zone. There's a little pause.
Instead, we cut to his teammate, Marc Marquez, who's leaving the first corner. As you can see, he is also with brand new rubber fitted. We'll get Bagnaia's first sector through shortly. But I guess the strategy that Bagnaia always adopts is to leave it for the end, to do the homework, do the hard yard on old tyres, and make sure that you've got as much information and data as you can for the business end of Sunday. Guess what he does, though, is the offense means that when by the time Bagnaia does finally put a software tyre in, he's generally under a bit of pressure.
Said that minimum, Marc Marquez will jump half a second, 6/10 of a second when he's out on fresh sugar. It's going to be more, much more when he carries this lap on through. Because he's best so far, 53.343, which is 400ths of a second outside of his benchmark this morning. That is going to be bettered quite comfortably. He drops down the hill, hard on the brakes here going to turn 10. Hard braking zone, turn 10 named after Kevin Trent. I can't believe a better corner to be named after the Texan. Of course, he was so famous for his late aggressive braking style, was the 1993 MotoGP World Champion. Up horsepower here, Mark will rise as we pick up his number 63 factory Ducati teammate Pecco Bagnaia. This will be more likely from Pecco as he looks to jump inside the top 10. 12 as you can see on the leaderboard as it stands right now. Bagnaia up to third. What about Marc Marquez? Is it coming deep into that final set now? Marc Marquez, this might be a 51. This is going to be the first ever to do it. It is a 1:51.988. More history then goes the way of the reigning world champion. He is the first rider ever here in Czechia to lap Brno in the 1:51s. Half a second, 6/10. He found 1.4 seconds on a fresh tyre. Awesome job again.
He might have been there for long though. Here comes Aigura, who gets to within 100th of a second of the world champion. Just showing that Aprilia aren't going anywhere here in Brno this weekend. Aigura joins Marc Marquez in the 151s.
How good is that look for Aigura, who has had his issues not getting through to Q2. He's been fine in his good position once he's in that second qualifying session. Aigura can get himself anywhere near the first 2 rows in the main Grand Prix here on Sunday, even for the sprint tomorrow, where we know just how good he is on roll one. We're going to the gearbox there, you can see with his left feet with Raul Fernandez. He's crept, and I say crept into the top 10 briefly. He's got there in 10 with a 52.578. Bezzecchi has just improved once again. He's down to a 152.147. Bears also threatening a 51.
Martin doesn't like he's getting anywhere near a 51 here though. I don't think he's even going to be in the top 10 with this. Quattararo and everything goes 15. Martin does go 11th. It was a good final sector for Jorge Martin, but he's still 400 shy of Raul Fernandez. When you've got a double long lap penalty already next to your name, the last thing you need is a trip in Q1.
Got to get through there. Been in for 10 minutes coming up. Meanwhile, Martin only been in Q1 once so far this season. That was in the bruising battle of Catalonia, where he had 5 crashes across the weekend and then went down and was hospitalised briefly after crash at the post-race test on Monday. Dramir trying to scrap his way back, muscle his way back inside that top 10. He was third, not the Honda, there will be on the factory Honda. A 52.368 does indeed push Mir back inside the top 10. He's jumped up to 7th.
Closeness between Ducati and Aprilia, with the Costas KTM as always fighting a good fight for the Austrian brand up there in 4th. You've got Ducati, Aprilia, the top 3. Then of course there's KTM. Then a pair of more further Ducatis, Bagnaia and Aldeguer, 5th and 6th. And here comes Alex Marquez, who's looking to try and lift himself up the order up into 15th place. But Q2 not really the target for the 73s. As he had a little bit of a moment, he could do without those.
Herrera, Quattararo, Bastianini, Miller, Razgat, Yoglu, and Marins all correctly. Reinhard Marquez impressed Seek return, to say the least, from number 73. What about Ralph Hernandez? Can he make a two-track out of Williams going straight in for Q2 tomorrow morning? 11th at the moment, so he needs to find some pace. Over the line he goes. He keeps up. He's got a second lap in a row now that Ralph Hernandez has just about pinched that top 10. And 52.423 has squeezed him in. 10 mile clear is a Morbidelli.
We're used to seeing closest top 10s on a Friday ever. We're not far away from that again here this afternoon. Just 4/10 of a second covers the top 10 around a near 2-minute lap as once again Davide Tardozzi, I think, trying to calm down Marc Marquez. I'm amazed he's still trying, to be honest.
He's probably just said to him, look, a 151.988, that's good enough. That's good enough. You don't have any headaches about Q2 now. I don't think the word settle appears in Marc Marquez's vocabulary, does it? When has Marc Marquez ever settled for anything as a Grand Prix rider in MotoGP across all classes? The guy is a serial winner. He was born to win, just as he did so for the first time in 2026 for the main Grand Prix in Balloton 2 weeks ago. Yes, they were obviously saying to the media, after Mugello, this track, pretty physical, similar in configuration. Well, I'll be pretty happy with the content if I'm within 10 seconds of the winner on Sunday. And he opens the count on Friday afternoon with the fastest ever lap of the no. It's got to be tongue-in-cheek for Mike, hasn't it?
Yes, and surely a little bit of mind games to his opposition as well, saying that if I'm beating you in this current physical situation, you just wait until I'm 100%. Of course, this is just Friday afternoon, and of course we're right to recall what happened in Mugello when the Ducatis were all very fast on Friday, and Aprilia really took the game away from them when we got into Saturday morning and through the race of Sunday. So Aprilia aren't going to make this easy for Ducati. Just 100th of a second between the leading Ducati of Marc Marquez and the leading Aprilia, which for once today at the moment is Ayagor.
Fabio Quartararo on the factory Yamaha. We're just going to replay of him on the super slow-mo action. 17th. Second he was this morning. So all the service has been resumed as far as Yamaha's quartet go. With the Quartararo 17th, and Miller 19th, and Razgat the Aldridge 20th, and Paul Aitrins 21st. What we do know, it's been well documented, the riders have talked about it incessantly over at Simco Baby, that V4 powered M1. But it's got one big weakness, one Achilles heel, it is a lack of power. And what do you need in abundance around Renault? There's a section of the track called Horsepower Hill. You've been occasionally how much engine performance is required. And when you're lacking engine performance in Renault, you're in a whole world of pain. Top Yamaha, 17.
Yeah, we've got a top speed ranking on our timing screen, which is the fastest top speed of every rider in this session. So even at his fastest through the speed tracks, Fabio Quartararo is giving up 14 kilometers an hour to Marco Bezzecchi on the factory Aprilia. That's what, 8 or 9 miles an hour, 3 lap time that he's using. And Quartararo's quicker than he went this morning when he did a 53.5. He's some 6/10 quicker. Of course, the Ducatis and Aprilias have moved the goalposts so significantly that they're practically in a different stadium to Fabio right now.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough to defeat a world champion suffering at the wrong end of the leaderboard. So as it is as well for Alex Rins, Jack Miller, MotoGP race winners, top up Razgat Lioglu, the former Golden Boy, of course, in World Superbikes. It is turning up. Marc Marquez rolled out of it. We had Razgat Lioglu at the cup there, didn't it? It's a shame that Mark decided to back out of that one. As he settled, as he listened to Davide Tardozzi. Tardozzi, they know. I've always said when Mark judges Ducati and judge Marc Marquez when he was anywhere near full fitness, we were able to judge a quite a dominant performance, a dominant weekend last time out in Balloton. What about Jorge Martin? 12th place. This is a really big 4.5 minutes coming up for the number 89. As mentioned, only time he's been in Q1 so far this year. Fabio Antonio trying to make sure that he's not got any late worries about slipping out of Q2. He's in the danger zone at the moment in 8th place, but he's trying to make sure that there is no late bother because we're still happy with it.
It's really important that he doesn't get held up here by Jack Miller and one of the Trackhouse Aquilias that are up ahead of him. Miller is just coming towards the end of an outlap, so in theory he should be getting out of the way of Fabic Stefanonia. Good help if you're up at all. And there is no, as he takes top spot from Marc Marquez on a 51.9.
And on the final sector from Fabio for Gian Antonio. Wow. He's the third rider then to lodge a 151.9 in this session. Super tight at the top. Less than 6 hundredths of a second skipping Viggio, Marc Marquez and Negura. We've got red helmets though, lighting up our commentary box here. Bezzecchi is flying. Jorge Martin's on a big lap. We've mentioned how much he does need to find something special later on in this session.
Well, Bezzecchi's a quarter of a second up practically at the halfway stage at the moment. Potentially we're heading towards a mid-51 if we carry this on. Here's Bastianini, who's missed out in 11th, only 6 tenths off the pace. A mid-52 doesn't cut it this afternoon.
Bezzecchi is about to destroy what was Fabio Gian Antonio's 60-second all-time lap record. A 151.942 is under monumental pressure here. Bezzecchi, we know how good the Aprilia is. This is where he really is agile. This is where the manoeuvrability of the Aprilia will come into play. Look at Jorge Martin fighting with all of his might to get into Q2. Bezzecchi on the line does find a 151.826. Brilliant by Bez. Over 10 clip. Martin does come over the line and get himself inside that top 10. How crucial, how decisive could that be for Jorge Martin? Up to P8.
Far from Seiko, who's only 600ths of a second clear of Raul Fernandez, who is currently improving. This was Martin wrestling the Aprilia through the final couple of corners. He's already, while you're watching this, though, dropped a place to 9th because Joan Mir's got up ahead of him.
That is stark, blazing bonkers. That's insane. He was his shoulder down going through turn 14 there. Wow. He is just all action. He is spectacular to watch, isn't he? Jorge Martin. That was awesome.
Yeah, he is now 10th. Raul Fernandez did improve to 9th on the 52.354, so Martin is now just 38 thousandths ahead of Maverick Vinales to complete the top 10. Ayagura was super fast through the first sector, was watching his timing screen as he was unfolding this lap. Can he join Bezzecchi at the top of the order? Ayagura with a stunning final sector. He takes top spot.
Ayagura.
He doesn't do Friday.
Risking time attacks? No, I think we could maybe put that one to bed. That is something special from the former Moto2 world champion, isn't it? What a lap time from Ayagura. Joan Mir has taken a tumble at turn 7. That's going to bring out late yellow flags, isn't that? Could be costly for some riders. Mir's gone down though at turn 7 while in P7.
Oh yeah, he tried to pick it up immediately, and then he's just going to hit the gravel trap, and that's just going to pitch him into a fall. So a slow speed crash there for Joan Mir, who is in 7th place at the moment, so it might actually save his bacon this afternoon.
So Aguirre, where did that 51.735 come from? We've seen so often this year him be able to get himself through the Q2. But his best qualifying so far this year is 6 around 2 and 8. He's getting even quicker here, getting even faster. What about Maverick Vinales? Well, we saw Top Gun top 3 at one stage in this session. Can he get himself back in the top 10?
Yeah, Martin is now out of the top 10 because while we were watching that crash for Mir, Diogo Moreira went into 8th place on the other Honda for LCR. So at the moment, Moreira also going through in 8th place. So Martin starts his final flying lap of the afternoon outside the top 10.
Big one. Big this one, isn't it, for Martin? We've seen down the years him deliver some super special explosive one laps. Well, he needs to find another one. Scotland's teammate Marco Bezzecchi, who wisely moves out of the way. Bez has rolled out of it, and he's going to be second in this session, it looks like. Yeah, Martin's under the cosh here, isn't he? Under the cosh as he powers into the stadium section. Into turn 7 he'll go where Joan Mir tipped up a few months ago.
Yeah, already a quarter of a second down at the first sector point. That's the one lap penalty in the background that he'll be going through twice on Sunday afternoon. 4 tenths down at the halfway stage, even by Jorge Martin's standards, as it's looking again a little bit uncomfortable there through the left-hander of 8. It's going to take something truly heroic for him to get into the top 10 from there.
Right on the edge of the track limits there, wasn't he? Well, he was almost on the green, coming out of 9. Shows how hard he's pushing, how hard he's having to fight for every ounce of a second here. Jorge Martin, he's all in. Well, he only knows one way, does he, number 89, but it is all in and it's over. Jorge Martin, and for just a second time in 2026, will feature in our opening qualifying session. Agura, Antonio, Marc Marquez, Pedro Possible taking the checkered flag. Agura, what a belter in Brno. What a performance. We have in that session, we've got seven riders that were inside Pecco Bagnaglia's old all-time lap record. Agura, Bezzecchi, Gian Antonio, your top three. Bagnaia, Marc Marquez, Pedro Acosta and Joan Mir, all under the 2025 all-time lap record. Mir's going to get through in 7 despite his late crash at turn 7. Moreira shining once again. What a performance by Moreira on the El Johan Rize. Aldeguer's in 9th, Ralph Fernandez through by a whisker by just 100th of a second. Relief to Fernandez in the top 10.
Just Gudotti's got the minus touch, hasn't he? First day in the job, and Agura from not quite nowhere, but not far from it, ends the opening day of this Czech Grand Prix on top. He was up the sharp end. He was back in Austin, wasn't he, earlier on in the year when Agura was very strong on Friday. He had a big crash on Saturday morning, which robbed him of all of his confidence. As long as he doesn't do the same thing tomorrow, Agura is in genuine contender for, at the very least, a first front row start in MotoGP.
He hasn't started hiding 6 so far this year. And look at his qualifying performances. There's been plenty. A whole chunk, a whole bunch of Q2 appearances. 8th in Thailand, 11th in Austin, 11th in Jerez. That's Jorge Martin. Debrief for the coach of Daniel Romagnoli there on the right-hand side of the picture. Just to the left-hand side of the shot there was a fully tanked by Fabiano Sturlacchini.
Classic cross of the arms to indicate that the front end was tucking on him. It looked hard work, didn't it, for Jorge Martin this afternoon. And this was fished on various occasions already today with the double long lap penalty already to serve. Martin can forget any hopes of the podium if he doesn't get through Q1 tomorrow. Even forgetting the double long laps, he'll be starting outside of the top 12. So tomorrow morning now is absolutely huge to Martin's weekend, where he already trails Marco Bezzecchi by 20 points.
Oh, but this afternoon has been a slide all day, really. 14th this morning, 11th this afternoon. So right, who's second in the World Championship with a striking distance to his teammate Marco Bezzecchi. Just 20 points splitting those two as we go into tomorrow's 11-lap two-stage sprint, 10-lap two-stage sprint rather, at 3 p.m. local time. Fabio Gian Antonio once again ends a Friday inside the top 3. Feels like he's been there on plenty of occasions so far this year. But take a bow by Agura. Absolutely sensational performance by the track house. Absolutely right on track, isn't he, so far? So let's go forward to his boss, Davide Brivio. Over
Davide, we've been saying all year, if Agura can work out time attack, that he's going to be a real threat. It looks as though he's worked it out.
Yeah, everybody was waiting for a difficult qualifying. Now, also for us, I mean, we know which is one side that he has to improve, but this track, I feel, I mean, on a paper, looks like suitable for his riding style, a flowing that he has, and yeah, it was great. He just was feeling good. Great. It's not that he cannot do time attack, because, I mean, even from the first race, he qualified 5th, first ever race, or whatever. I mean, sometimes when in a good condition, he can do. Of course, we have to be more consistent on this, yes.
Well, a great first day. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah, a great first day. Thanks very much. I mean, rather remarkable, somewhat amazingly. Agura's best ever qualifying for MotoGP is on his debut, his very first start with his 5th. The lights out at the Chang International Circuit in Bullrun at the start of 2025. Well, it was spectacular to watch, but it just wasn't fast enough, was it, for Jorge Martin? He's got both wheels sliding along into that turn 13, 60 degrees of lean angle at 110 kilometers an hour. It was great for us watching trackside, but crucially for Jorge Martin, not fast enough to get him directly into Q2.
Bonus practice start session here, aren't we, at the end of MotoGP Practice? Didn't see this in the schedule, but that's what we're getting. So if you're wondering, like us, why Marco Bezzecchi was leading pit lane once again at the end of this practice session, well, that is your answer.
Bonus chance to see the best riders in the world fire their 300 horsepower MotoGP bikes off the start line. Brad Binder It was looking promising at one stage, a little bit late on. You felt that he was going to be a big threat for QQ. Unfortunately, committed down the order to 19. South African most record of the game. Just over 8.5 tenths divided the top 19 riders. Let's go down to Jack then for an update on this rider news of Friday afternoon. It starts after.
Yeah, I believe that Lewis mentioned this morning in California Collector, MotoGP Sporting Director came into the box to explain some of the things that they were looking into following on from the incident at the Catalan Grand Prix. One of them was the banning of front ride height devices, not the rear, just the front. Now this is a suggested practice start session for them to pretend, for them to try a start without the front device. It's not mandatory for all the factories to participate. It's for them to go out to a few starts without the front devices locked in, so they can see what kind of an impact it has, with the possibility of implementing it as Carlos said later on this year.
Thanks very much, Jack, for those observations. Yeah,
You're not used to wheelies off the line, are you, folks?
yeah, we're seeing a bit more air between tarmac and front tyres, aren't we? As see Fabio for Gian Antonio started with the whole shot device issue. Has been a bit of an issue for Digio, hasn't it?
So Marquez has got his engaged because the front barely lifted there, just a momentary lift of the front tyre. As to underline on Jack there, not mandatory, it's suggestion to do a practice start with the front tyre. Marc Marquez, the reason he won't be doing it with the front device engaged because he missed the practice start session this morning after he crashed late in FP1.
Labrador had his whole shot device engaged, just using this extra chance to dial in your launch control for the sprints and the Grand Prix here over the remainder of the weekend.
Bezzecchi pulling into pole position. That's why the Aprilia are the fastest starting bike in the business.
Yeah, and that's whole shot device engaged. The Aprilia is just an absolutely rocket ship off the line, isn't it?
Yeah, you can see the massive gap from front bumper up to the front fairing of the batch KTM there of Brad Binder. So yeah, you basically look for the gap between top of front tyre and the bottom of the fairing to work out whether the device is engaged or not.
Some told that maybe whole shot devices will be disregarded for the remainder of the season. I think France Grand Prix gone onwards, all part of the debate or part of the discussions. The chief of the other Carlos Valletta, MotoGP Sports Entertainment Group, director of the conference with myself and Ayrton Magello to explain some of the rule changes. Next year, corporate devices, ride height devices, they will be banned to the history books. By the museum will mix these bikes in about 6 months' time.
Future head honcho Honda there, watching on from the pit wall. Confirmation yesterday of the long-term replacement for Alberto Puig, who, as we heard from Jack at the start of the session, still going to be involved in a consultancy role.
Yeah, Mikahiko Kawase, who I believe was can be involved in Honda's Moto3 World Championship success in the past. Told you the Moto3 concept from Lorenzo Della Porta was world champion lightweight class in 2019. Most recently he has been at the sharp end of the technical warfare for Honda, very closely with Romano Alberciano. The whole shot device still very much employed on his factory Ducati. It does eventually get to complete as 2 practice starts then on day one here in Brno, and what has been a very promising and a very encouraging day one for the factory Ducati rider. Quickest this morning, the fastest this afternoon, despite a couple of spells as well in the Q2. He's been in the gravel at turn 7 and turn 11 today.
Pretty unusual on a bullet train, isn't it? Leaving the start line with its both front and rear ride-height devices engaged. And that's why so often Marco Bezzecchi gets the first corners first, and generally he does that and wins Grand Prix. That ride-height device, you could almost credit that with his sprint podium in Hungary. He got him into third place on the first lap and gave him the track position to defend that bronze medal over the remainder of the sprint, as the likes of Bergen Aldegar in particular looked very frustrated behind him.
It might take a bit of getting used to actually, won't it? Not seeing MotoGP bikes effectively become sort of 2 mile-an-hour truckers on corner exits when they drop down to maximise acceleration, reduce wheelie with the ride-height devices, which were pioneered by Ducati around 2018, 2019. That was all banned tech moving forward into 2027. Well, there is Ayagura, who I think it's fair to say probably shocked himself as much as he shocked the world here in Brno today. The 151.735 is a heck of a lap time. I mean, it's pretty much 6/10 inside of Pecco Bagnaio's 2025 all-time lap record. A 152.303, which looks downright pedestrian now. We've returned 11 months later for the Grand Prix of Czechia. One of the 2 Prima Pramac Yamahas. Tough day at the office for Toprak Razgat Worldly and for Jack Miller. That's too frequently, unfortunately for those pair. Miller 18th, Razgat Worldly 21st. Jack Miller confirming yesterday he did offer himself, didn't he, to Yamaha to test our 850cc prototype here on Monday, an offer which was declined, which is a bit harsh and rough actually, to be honest.
You feel they'd want the experience of Jack to Jack's a very professional rider, even allowing for what his situation likely is at the end of this season into next season. You know he'd give the very best feedback to Yamaha, but that is their decision. On the here and now, and day one in Brno, it's Ayagura. Bit of a surprise package, P1 for Trackhouse. Marco Bezzecchi, the championship leader, a strong second. Ducati third, fourth and fifth for Gian Antonio Bagnaia and Marc Marquez, all in the 151s. Pedro Costa sixth for KTM ahead of Joan Mir, who got away with the crash late on, still seventh, ahead of Diogo Moreira once again through the Q2 for LCR, a fine eighth. Bermin Aldegar ninth, ahead of Ralph Fernandez in 10th. The headline outside the top 10 quite clearly, second in the World Championship, Jorge Martin. All of the double one lap practice, but he's in Q1 tomorrow.
Yes, Martin imperative with the double on lap on Sunday. We find himself into Q2 tomorrow morning. Let's throw this over. I agree. Fastest on Friday. This is his work. Went out on a used medium to start the session. Looks like a mid 53. He might have crossed the first. And look at that. His final run on a brand new soft rear tyre. An all-time lap record. A 151.735. Brilliant win by Ayagura.
Marco Bezzecchi started the session on a brand new medium rear, and from there on did all his work on the soft. That second one potentially a bit of a dress rehearsal for the sprint tomorrow.
Top Ducati in the World Championship in P3 overall. Top Ducati in P3 here on day one in Brno. It's Fabio with Gian Antonio shining once again. Figia on fresh front and rear rubber later on in that session, put himself down to a 51.9.
Pecco Bagnaia left it later than most to go across to a brand new soft rear tyre, but when Pecco did, he also got into the 151s to secure fourth place.
Well, about sometimes a clear work and great look at that in sector one. Bezzecchi and Ayagura over 10th clear of the field in the first split.
As he did this morning, Marc Marquez still with a narrow advantage in sector 2.
The season control in sector 3, just over factory Ducati with Bagnaia and Marc Marquez.
And hammering home that advantage in the fourth sector on his way to a 151.735.
Well, we've never started a MotoGP race on the front row of the grid has Ayagura, but the stage is set for him to drop a bit of a giant killing act here tomorrow in Brno with a gold medal at stake in tomorrow's Tissot Sprint. Could he be golden eye going into Sprint Saturday? The Japanese star, though, fastest on Friday here in the Grand Prix of Czechia.